Welcome back to Dinar Community Channel. They laughed at IQD believers, until Iraq unleashed a financial reset so massive, it struck the global markets like a freight train. No warnings, no leaks, just a tidal wave of wealth and power that changed everything overnight. For years, the Iraqi Dinar (IQD) has been a subject of speculation, skepticism, and hope. Many dismissed the idea that Iraq's national currency would ever make a major comeback on the global stage. It was once considered a long shot, a wild dream among fringe investors and currency enthusiasts. But what happened recently has changed everything. In a move that stunned even the most optimistic observers, Iraq executed a financial maneuver so significant, so seismic in its implications, that it sent shockwaves through the global economic system. The IQD reset wasn't just a financial event, it was a moment of historic recalibration, one that few predicted but none can now ignore. This wasn't a slow rollout or a subtle shift. It struck with the force and suddenness of a freight train. Overnight, Iraq's dinar, long undervalued and overlooked, was catapulted into the financial spotlight. Behind closed doors, governments, central banks, and elite financial institutions had been monitoring Iraq's economic developments. They were well aware that Iraq had been laying the groundwork for something transformative. But even they couldn't fully anticipate the scope and speed of the revaluation. For many, the change was so abrupt that it caught them flat-footed. At the heart of this reset lies Iraq's commitment to sovereignty, economic modernization, and control over its national destiny. Over the past several years, Iraq has steadily worked to stabilize its economy, boost foreign reserves, reduce its dependency on foreign aid, and reassert control over its monetary policies. Its central bank undertook major reforms, aligning with international banking standards, strengthening its digital infrastructure, and cleaning up corruption that had plagued its financial institutions for decades. All of this was in preparation for a moment few thought would arrive. The reset's activation was not just a revaluation, it was a declaration. Iraq is no longer the broken, war-torn nation the world once pitied. It has rebuilt, recalibrated, and reclaimed its position in the global economy. And with that reclamation came a currency reset of unprecedented scale. While prior speculation focused on modest shifts, the actual numbers blew past those expectations. Exchange rates that had long remained stagnant suddenly surged. International platforms scrambled to update values, while currency traders were caught in a whirlwind of volatility. Financial experts quickly began unpacking the reset, trying to understand what had happened, and why it had caught so many off guard. One key element was Iraq's deliberate silence. In the months leading up to the reset, Iraqi leadership made no grand proclamations, no media blitz, no premature celebration. Instead, they worked quietly, diligently, aligning key sectors, finalizing trade partnerships, and ensuring internal readiness. As a result, when the reset hit, it wasn't a leak or rumor that spread, it was reality. Verified, activated, live, banks across the Middle East had to adapt quickly. But perhaps more remarkable was how global institutions responded. Major financial hubs in Europe, Asia, and North America were thrust into emergency meetings. Forex markets trembled. Central banks issued quiet advisories. Overnight, the IQD wasn't just a regional story, it was a global headline. Investors who had long held dinars out of principle or faith found themselves staring at once-in-a-lifetime windfalls. Others, who had laughed off the idea, suddenly realized they had underestimated Iraq's potential and resolve. The implications go far beyond just currency values. Iraq's reset forced a re-evaluation of how emerging economies might leverage national assets, especially oil, in reshaping their monetary policies. For decades, Iraq's wealth has been tied to its massive energy reserves. But that wealth was often controlled or distorted by external forces. With the reset, Iraq effectively declared that it was done playing by others' rules. Its dinar would reflect its real economic potential, not just historical chaos. It wasn't only investors who were stunned. Policy analysts began issuing new forecasts for Middle Eastern growth. Institutions like the IMF and World Bank issued statements acknowledging Iraq's bold move, while simultaneously rechecking their models. New bilateral agreements began forming, especially with neighboring countries eager to tap into Iraq's rising economic tide. Suddenly, Iraq wasn't a liability, it was an opportunity. And then came the media frenzy. Financial networks that once mocked dinar investors were now hosting roundtable discussions on what the IQD reset means for the global economy. YouTubers, economists, and mainstream analysts all jumped into the conversation. The old mockery had turned into curiosity, and that curiosity quickly evolved into strategic interest. Hedge funds, private equity groups, and sovereign wealth entities began recalculating their exposure. The IQD had gone from joke to juggernaut, but perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of this reset is the empowerment it provided to the Iraqi people. For decades, they lived under a currency that failed to reflect their nation's rich resources, history, and potential. The reset was more than numbers on a screen, it was dignity restored. In cities across Iraq, the news sparked celebrations, not just among the elite but among everyday citizens who saw the change as a long overdue step toward financial justice. This newfound strength also gave Iraq greater leverage in geopolitical negotiations. Countries that had once dictated terms to Iraq found themselves sitting across a table with equals. Energy deals began including dinar-denominated clauses. Regional financial institutions started adding IQD-based instruments. Iraq had flipped the script. Still, this new chapter comes with challenges. Sudden wealth and increased global visibility bring with them intense scrutiny, opportunism, and even potential destabilization. Iraq will need to remain vigilant to avoid inflationary pressures, speculative bubbles, and political interference. But if its recent track record is any indication, Iraq is not looking to squander this moment. Its leadership appears keenly aware that this is not just a short-term boost, but the beginning of a generational transformation. Global investors are also reevaluating other so-called dead currencies, wondering if Iraq's playbook might inspire similar moves elsewhere. Currencies like the Vietnamese dong, Zimbabwean dollar, and others have long been considered undervalued due to geopolitical instability, but Iraq's success has opened the door to new conversations about sovereign reassertion and economic re-engineering. Financial think tanks are now scrambling to catch up. Seminars are being scheduled. White papers are being drafted. The Iraqi model may become a case study in how to quietly but powerfully prepare for a monetary resurgence. It wasn't loud. It wasn't predicted, but when it landed, it hit like a freight train, and the world is still feeling the impact. In the dinar community, there's a vindicated tone. For years, they were told to give up, to stop dreaming, to accept the status quo. But they held on, not blindly, but with the belief that Iraq's destiny was not yet fulfilled. That belief has now materialized in the most dramatic fashion possible. Whether you're a seasoned economist or a casual observer, one thing is certain: the IQD reset changed everything. It challenged conventional thinking about emerging markets, demonstrated the power of strategic silence, and forced the global financial system to rethink how value is assigned. Iraq, once counted out, has just re-entered the game, not as a pawn, but as a player with serious leverage. And for those still catching their breath, there's one final message: this wasn't a lucky break or a speculative flash in the pan. It was the result of deliberate planning, national will, and unshakable belief. The IQD reset that no one saw coming isn't over. It's just beginning. Like and subscribe for more videos.